Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, and UK Astrologer. Hello, how are you? Now, this week I thought I'd cover an aspect. I might cover two aspects, but I'm definitely going to cover one. And the aspect that I'd like to talk about today is Mercury and Uranus in opposition to each other. It was prompted by something that happened this week, and I actually saw astrology in front of me being displayed. Saw how a Mercury-Uranus opposition actually works in practice. So I'm just going to read for you from Astrology for Dummies by Ray Orion, what she says about Mercury and Uranus being in opposition. Mercury represents the way you think, while Uranus brings inspiration from out of the blue. Depending on how the two interact, they can bring out the brilliant inventor or the mad scientist. Now, she divides the aspects up as conjunction, harmonious, trine, sextile, or hard. A hard aspect is what we're talking about today. A hard aspect is a challenging aspect, and that's what oppositions are. So, Mercury opposition Uranus is as sometimes brilliant, sometimes just impatient. You have an erratic mind. You rebel against authority, routine, and convention, and in doing so, create tension and conflict. But you also have spontaneous, ingenious intellect that can take you far. Now, she uses as her examples Howard Stern, never heard of him, Lily Thompson, not too sure I've heard of them, and Oscar Wilde, who I have heard of, but I'm not going to use those chart examples today. The chart examples we're going to have just to demonstrate the zillions of people that have this as an aspect in their charts. We're going to use four people's charts, and I'm going to make a mention of somebody else's. So first chart we're going to look at is Billie Jean King, who was a famous tennis player. I'm not going to go into great detail about their charts because you can find them on Astro Databank. They're located there. So she was born on the 22nd of November 1943 at 11:45 in the morning in Long Beach, California. Now, her sun sign was Scorpio. I just double check. I think she's passed. Oops, beg your pardon. She hasn't passed. She's 82 at the moment. And she was, when she was famous, which she obviously still is famous, she won 39 Grand Slam titles, 12 in singles, 16 in women's doubles and 11 in mixed doubles. She was a member of the victorious United States team in 7 Federation Cups and 9 Whiteman Cups. She's an advocate of gender equality and has long been a pioneer for equality and social justice. Now, her chart's quite unusual because she's got a Capricorn ascendant, which is a terribly, severe ascendant to have. This is somebody who is very, very serious. The Queen Elizabeth II, who I've referred to a number of times on the podcast and mentioned her quite a bit because we know the royal family's times and dates of birth because they're recorded, unlike other English people. And she had a Capricorn ascendant as well. So anybody with Capricorn ascendant is going to take life seriously. There's just no way of not doing it. But Billie has sun sign Scorpio, 29 degrees 35 minutes, whilst her Mercury is 6 degrees into Sagittarius and her Uranus is 7 degrees into Gemini. So they're an exact opposition by a couple of seconds difference, if you look at the maths a bit more carefully. And she has a very, very one-sided chart. She's got nothing in the 12th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd or 4th houses, and her 6th house is empty in, I think I'm using equal house. Hope I am. Yes. And So let me give you some examples of what Mercury in opposition to Uranus comes out with. So this is just a teeny little quote of hers. It's really just important that we start celebrating our differences. Let's start tolerating first, but then we need to celebrate our differences. And that's a key thing for Uranus, is it never wants to be the same. It doesn't do the same thing. It's such an erratic planet. Now, I'm going to move through these charts quite quickly, okay? The next one we've got is Jimi Hendrix, who was born on the 27th of November 1942 at 10:15 a.m. in Seattle in WA, whatever county that is in America. Washington. And he's got... And you've heard of Jimi Hendrix. I'm only using people who I've heard of today. Jimi Hendrix was a famous musician who unfortunately died. I think he died of a drugs overdose. You can check these people out in more details. I'm just giving you some chart examples. And his Mercury was 2 degrees into the sign of Sagittarius. His sun sign was 4 degrees, and his Mercury was 2 degrees, and his Uranus was also 2 degrees. So they are an exact opposition, except he'd had Uranus retrograde 2 degrees, Saturn retrograde at 9 degrees, so they're conjunct to each other. And conjunct his sun was Mercury and Venus, so his sun sign was in the centre of 2 other planets. So Mercury on one side of his sun sign, Venus on the other side. But we've got that opposition there. So when Mercury opposes to Uranus, the brain is not going to operate, the thinking process isn't going to operate in an inverted commas normal way, and it will be erratic. There is no 2 ways about it. This isn't someone who thinks in a calm manner. They probably can be calm, but there'll be this sort of boop type of thing. And a person, now this is my expression now, a person with Mercury and Uranus in opposition will ambush you with their ideas and possibly their actions. Now, going back to Billie Jean King, there's no way that you can be a successful tennis player and be predictable. You know, you're knocking the ball across the net, and I've only played a teeny weeny bit of tennis at school, so trust me, I'm not an expert in it. But when you're bashing the ball to the other side of the net, if you're bashing it and the other person knows exactly where that ball's going to end up, bing, they'll be able to ping it back. And it's that unpredictability, I think, that has made Billie the tennis player that she was. I mean, she's still alive, so apologies for thinking she passed earlier. Jimi Hendrix, famous musician, etc. So here's one little quote from him. "You have to go on and be crazy. Craziness is like heaven. I was trying to do too many things at the same time, which is my nature, but I was enjoying it, and I still do enjoy it. I just hate to be in one corner. I hate to be put as only a guitar player, or either only as a songwriter, or only as a tap dancer. I like to move around." And I love this one. "Knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens." Now, astrologically, he did have quite a challenging chart in the sense that his sun sign is Sagittarius and his moon sign's Cancer. So he's a fire sign with a water moon sign, and the moon's conjunct Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. And I think the moon is also conjunct Pluto. No, it's out of orbit, conjunct Pluto. And the opposition there would be the inspiration for his lyrics, because he couldn't quite describe where he got his inspiration from. I think that's something that would be difficult for somebody as a creative person to be able to describe anyway. So that's another example. So we're going to go on to the third chart. So we've done Billie Jean. I'm sorry these are so quick, but we don't need to go into them in any detail, and we wouldn't if we natally had Uranus in opposition to Mercury, which, trust me, I don't have. Now, the next person, unfortunately, is in the news a lot at the moment. So this is Jeffrey Epstein, who was born on the 20th of January 1953 at 6:15 a.m. in Brooklyn, Kings County, New York. And he was a 0 sun sign Aquarius with Mercury 21 degrees Capricorn and Uranus 15 degrees Cancer. So his Mercury and his Uranus are definitely in opposition. And what else is in opposition to Uranus? That's the only thing. It's just the Mercury is the only planet that opposes. And unfortunately, Uranus is in the 7th house of close personal relationships. So I don't need to tell you what things Jeffrey Epstein has ever said throughout the years. It's very much, Uranus is a freedom-loving planet, and as Ray Orion says, sometimes brilliant, sometimes just impatient. It's the erratic mind. And if you have read any of those emails that has come out with all the things, there doesn't seem to be one thing that he's particularly focusing on other than his biggest fantasy, which is to have these young persons as slaves to him. That seems to be his thing that's motivating the most. But you wonder whether or not that was just like a control thing, because if you've got Mercury and Uranus in opposition, you are not going to want to be controlled about anything. And Uranus is the ruling planet to Aquarius, and his sun sign is 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, the fourth person's chart I'm showing today is a guy called John Sessions, who is a UK comedian, and he unfortunately has passed. So has Jeffrey Epstein, so has Jimi Hendrix. The only one who hasn't that we've used today is Billie Jean King. And he was a sun sign Capricorn with a Gemini ascendant, so the ruler to his chart is Mercury. His Mercury was 7 degrees into Capricorn, and his Uranus was 16 degrees into Cancer. So he's got Sun and Mercury in Capricorn, Sun conjunct Chiron conjunct Mercury in opposition to Uranus in Cancer, also retrograde. His Uranus is retrograde and his Pluto is retrograde. They are definitely, Mercury is in opposition and the Sun is in opposition. And I've got some lovely quotes from him. He was a comedian, and I will put the link to the Guardian article as the sort of like his obituary. And it says, in the course of a few sentences, Sessions is liable to change voices from an Olivia to lofty of EastEnders, including a pun and a simile, refer to Picasso and Faulkner, and move from the Battle of Jena to a golf course. It's exhausting, exhilarating, and mostly very funny. And there's another little quote here, that when he left RADA, so I think RADA stands for the Royal Amateur Dramatic Association, he said, my plan was to try and do 2 careers at once, to be a comedian and an actor. For some years I managed to juggle the 2, but I've never felt I joined either club. Now, unfortunately, he died of a heart attack. He was quite young, he was in his 60s. But I just thought that quote there, so this is somebody talking about him. In the course of a few sentences, Sessions is liable to change voices from Olivia to lofty. So he's changing in a few sentences from one impersonating someone to someone else impersonation, all in a quick few seconds, yeah, which you can do if you have that as a thing in your chart. Okay, so if you've got Mercury opposition to Uranus, depending on what signs they're in, will determine whether or not you like to bounce about when discussing things. Now, the incident that happened to me is the person that I was with, as I say, I got ambushed. So we're out and we're eating, and then I haven't even finished my drink, and they've signalled to the waiter to pay the bill. And I saw this happen, and I thought, oh God, this has happened to me so many times before, that this conversation, there's a bunch of us all talking, we're all together, and then poof, that's it. The person with the Uranus Mercury opposition now wants to leave, now has decided for themselves, not not shared it with anybody else, decided for themselves that they have had enough. And I timed it. It was 1 hour, 15 minutes. It wasn't even 90 minutes. And I just thought, and I seriously felt ambushed by this. You know, when you're sitting with someone and you're out and you're having a meal and whatever, and there's a conversation going on, and most of the time you want to sort of finish your food. Okay, so to finish the food, they'd all finished their drinks. So the other people that were there, they'd all finished their drinks. I hadn't finished my drink, but the person with the Mercury-Uranus opposition, bing, suddenly decides that they want to go. They've done it more than once. I'm well aware of it. Every time it happens, I vow that I'm going to say something to prevent it from happening. And every time my Mercury retrograde forgets to do it, I vowed to myself I'm not going to let it happen again. But I literally felt ambushed. Whilst when I'm out somewhere with people that I know really well, and my friendship group, when we've all decided we'll have enough, one of us might say, oh, you know, I've got to get back now, and they look at their watch and, you know, I've got to get back, or my parking's running out, or I've got to go home and do something, and they'll announce that, and then we'll go, okay, great, and then we'll all go and take it in turns to pay and whatever, and then we'll all sort of slowly put our coats on and our jackets and stuff, and we'll leave the venue. This literally was somebody that was 1 minute sat down. If the bill hadn't had to be paid for, if that they were paying for the bill, which they didn't, but had they then would have got up. But what happened was the other people got up, left the room, and I'm still putting my coat on. But the thing that ambushed me the most was the signal to the waiter that they wanted to have the bill, which is always a signal when you're with someone that they want to pay, they want to go. And this was exactly this, like, bing, and it was completely random. It wasn't as if the conversation had gone anywhere that was difficult. Nobody was talking about anything that was upsetting or unusual, or it literally was so random that I myself felt ambushed. So I think if you've got Uranus and Mercury, or Mercury and Uranus in opposition, be aware that you can ambush people with the way that you communicate. The method of communication to make it easier for other people is to just give them a little sort of forewarning to something, which you can't do if you've got that. If you've got a Mercury-Uranus opposition, you're just going to go, idea, ping, and then want to in some ways act upon that idea. Now I'm going to do another quote now. So this is Managing Your Health and Wellness by Diane L. Kramer. Love this book, absolutely love this book. And this is sort of medical astrology here. So people that have Mercury either square or opposition, but we're not talking about the square today. We're talking about Mercury opposition to Uranus. She says, you are highly energetic with a fast metabolism. You would benefit from eating small, frequent meals instead of large ones, as this will help to restore the energy you so quickly use up. You tend to be high-strung and scattered, which can put a strain on your nervous system, leading to such conditions as headaches, spasms, or twitching. You may need more of the B vitamins, especially thiamine. Constant pressure and a difficulty in handling stress can put too much strain on your sensitive nerves and can lead to nerve irritation or, at worst, a nervous breakdown. You may be prone to worry and anxiety. You need daily exercise to help you deal with stress and to help channel your nervous energy. Now, of the 4 people that I've shared today, only one of those that I'm aware of, which is Billie Jean King, would have exercised regularly, which would assist that. I doubt Jeffrey Epstein ever did any form of exercise. I mean, most of the things he's right about, the people are giving him massages and stuff, and he's lying down somewhere. Jimi Hendrix probably used up an awful lot of energy being a performer, standing on stage and travelling from places to do gigs and stuff. And equally, John Sessions probably would have moved around a lot to do the things that he did. However, those 3 people aren't famed for doing anything physical. It's a daily exercise, which isn't 3 days a week. It would be daily exercise is the recommendation for Mercury opposition to Uranus. Okay, so now I'm going to read to you from Astro.com. They've got a really nice bit of software on there called Astro Click. What's it called? Astro Click Portrait that you can click on. So if you want to practice your aspects, I reckon use that and have a read of it. And there are two people's interpretations there, Robert Petelier, and I think the first one is Robert Hand. Sorry, Robert Hand. And it's quoted from his youth portrait. So this is their interpretation, because the first ones I've given you are by women, these are by blokes. So Mercury opposition Uranus. You have a very sharp mind, which you enjoy using to stir people up. Anyone who seems self-satisfied or settled in his or her ways is a likely target for your stinging wit. Your mind has a rebellious side that always wants to take the opposite point of view from anyone else, especially if someone is trying to persuade you in some way. Learn to keep your mind open, even under pressure from others. However, when you're free to explore on your own, you are completely open, but you tend to be attracted to unusual ideas and those that conservative people consider unacceptable. You are also interested in ideas that teach you new insights and understanding of nature and the universe. You are likely to be quite restless and even nervous, especially with others. When you are alone, you are somewhat quieter. Now, the alternative interpretation by Robert Petelier goes, the opposition from Mercury to Uranus shows that you have an enormous intellectual vitality, as well as a genius for incurring the anger of others, which is exactly what happened to me this week. I literally felt ambushed. Can you tell that I'm still upset? You assume that your opinions are the only true ones, and you do not like it when others challenge them. If you can change this attitude, you will find that many of your closest associates can relate to you more easily. In fact, you're not really sure of your competence and need to reassure yourself through conflict with others. But if you do not give in when you're wrong, you may never know where you are failing. Compromise is your key to success. Science, education, social service, philosophy, and psychology are all fields in which you can discover who you really are. You must control your extremely emotional nature and your rejection of facts before you can successfully enter a romantic partnership. Learn to control your temper and stop while you are ahead. Now, I think I love those two interpretations. I think they're great. Now, obviously, you can, when you make an interpretation of one aspect in the chart, you need to take into account houses, if you've got them, because you've got a time of birth. You need to take into account what other aspects might be happening. But if it's just a Uranus, Mercury opposition to Uranus that we're talking about, it is that unpredictability. And Uranus is my favourite planet. It was discovered in Bath. I love Uranus. Okay, I absolutely love it. It's the let me just say it again. It's the unpredictability of it that I enjoy. However, there are certain things that I don't like that are unpredictable. So that's obviously something I've got to work on within myself here now. That I obviously very swiftly I wasn't triggered at the time. It was only afterwards that I looked back and said, oh God, that's happened again for the millionth time. And anybody that has that aspect isn't going to know that they're doing, this is a social situation we're talking about now, the person themselves isn't going to know that they're doing it because it's natural for them. What we have to remember when we're analysing someone's chart, what's going on for them is inverted commas natural for them because that's what they are born with, and we cannot expect them to be any different. We can negotiate a little bit in a social situation by what I would prefer to do is precede this by saying, please don't order the bill until we are all together in wanting to order the bill, so I could say to the group that would be the best thing. But even then, sometimes negotiating about things doesn't work. And getting into a conflict with somebody with Mercury opposition Uranus is not going to work, as we've just been advised by the two Roberts. So I don't know, maybe doing something even more erratic, or saying, if you want to go, then you'll have to pay, which probably stop them in their tracks. But if you know anybody, or you yourself have Mercury and Uranus in opposition, I'm not sure about squares now, in opposition, especially if it's a pretty much an exact opposition, then do email me right in and let me know how it feels for you. Or equally, if you know someone, so check your charts, so go through your chart database that you've got. Do you know anybody that has that, and how might it affect you? If this is someone in your social circle, so this is what happened with me, someone in the social circle. So have a little check of that thing out. Because to be at the receiving end of a Mercury-Uranus opposition is, in my case, actually, I coped with it okay at the time. It was afterwards, and then I thought, I've got to check this person's chart out. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It was just prompted today's podcast. Because I like astrology to be real for you. So this was something that I'd encountered. I'd unfortunately encountered the negative side of it because it had happened before. But I wanted to share some charts with you. It's not an unusual thing. I think when I searched for it on Astro.com, there was more than 2,000 people that have it over the years. So it's something that's going to happen all the time. I mean, as it happens at the moment, Mercury is in the sign of Pisces at the moment, and Uranus is in Taurus, so they're not doing anything. It won't be till much later this year, because Uranus is going into Gemini. It won't be until Mercury goes into Sagittarius that they could even possibly be in opposition this year. So if you've got a kiddie going to be born later on this year, then read up on astrology. So if you've got a Mercury-Uranus thing going on in your chart, then do ping me an email, and I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye-bye now.